So before I start, I just want to acknowledge that the title idea actually came from a comment made by a subscriber on my previous video. So Fred, thank you. I'd been struggling with what to call this video, saw your comment, and it was perfect. Because Jenn does see herself as being number one. She sees herself as being far more important than Maddie. And I believe she also saw herself as more important than Stefan, although she still put Stefan above Maddie. So this video is the third one in my series looking at the many things that Jenn said that showed us precisely what her priorities were when it came to Maddie. And I think we've already seen well and truly in the last two videos that Jenn did put Jenn first, and that Maddie was only something to be considered once Jenn's needs were dealt with. So in this video I'm looking at the rest of the interview, the video interview, and then the derivative immunity interview. So let's just jump in.
Because you offering him a lawyer is very weird.
I know. That was still me under the assumption that, I think at one point you guys interviewed me, and when you guys showed me the picture of her, I believed the sexual stuff, but I didn't want to believe that he had done anything evil to her. I'm like...
Now, I've heard that comment so many times, and yet every time I hear it, I'm still triggered to the point where I want to be able to reach through the screen of my iPad and choke that woman out. Who says that? I believed the sexual stuff, but I didn't want to believe that he'd done anything evil to her. What planet is this woman from? That is not what you would expect a mother to say. And certainly not in such a unaffected voice. She should be yelling and screaming about what that monster did to her child. But instead, as the detective said, she tried to get a lawyer for him. Because to her the sexual stuff wasn't evil. She didn't see it as wrong. She was so quick too to believe the sexual stuff and be okay with it. What does that tell you? To me, that says she knew. How could she not know? Or at the very least, she's telling us that that's fine, that's okay, it's perfectly acceptable for a 12-year-old child to have gone through that. Because that's not evil. This woman should have never been a parent.
No, what if he did this stuff fine, but what if she's still missing out there? What if somebody took her? I still wanted to believe I believed him. I believed his whole story. So I was just like, I kept repeating that part. I'm just like, what if she did get dropped off? What if she got abducted?
Now here's the thing. I could believe that old Potato Soto here was that dumb that she couldn't connect the SA stuff with her daughter going missing. But we've looked at so many interviews with her now. I've broken down so many of the things that she said that we know that she is actually really manipulative. And she's also a major liar. I think she's scrabbling here because she knows that what he did to her daughter was wrong. I believe she also knew that he was responsible for her daughter's death. So when she says, what if you did that stuff? Fine. Aside from, once again, wanting to choke her out, my take on that is right now she's trying to come up with an excuse for why she wanted to get a lawyer for him. Because she realises she's got to give them some kind of reason. And she's got to have some sort of excuse. So the first thing that she latches onto is, well, you showed me proof that he was SAing her. Although later she says, well, it wasn't SA because it was oral. So I'm just trying to be careful how I say things because of YouTube. But essentially here, she's trying to say that you showed me proof that there was SA, but you didn't show me proof at that point that he had unalived her. That's the reason why. And I don't believe that at all. I think this is just another excuse from Jenn. And unfortunately for her, it did not go down well with the detectives. Because honestly, what parent is going to consider their child is missing, the last person with their child is also the person that you've been shown images of SAing your child? And you're like, well, sure, he did that, fine, but I didn't believe that he did anything to her. BS. The woman is just trying to manipulate the detectives here into believing that she is innocent. Once again, it's about putting Jenn first. Jenn really didn't give a rat's about her daughter here. Definitely not what you would expect from a parent.
When you guys slept in the same bed together, in the middle, did you ever wake up and find them cuddling? Did you ever wake up and find them closer than you thought they should be?
They would snuggle, yeah.
Okay.
But we all snuggle. I didn't think that was abnormal.
So if you guys are sleeping in the same bed and she's in the center, you've woken up and they're snuggling, they're under the same blanket, they're not under the same blanket?
No.
But just like...
She's got her own blanket, she's got her
spooning
own...
for what? What is snuggling to you? Because to me, snuggling, spooning. Big spoon, little spoon.
He would lay down like this and she would be right here in the nook.
Okay.
I just hate thinking about poor Maddie being trapped in a bed between those two. There was no escape for her. And then Jenn turns around and talks about Maddie and him snuggling and says there's nothing abnormal about that. And she talks about, I even struggle saying this, Maddie actually being in the nook. That is just so wrong. That kind of physical contact, when they're in a bed together, the child has no escape route, and she thinks that's not abnormal. What is wrong with this woman? I'm sorry, and here is where I do have one criticism of Tyler. because I don't believe that adults should have a child trapped between them like that in a bed with no escape route. Even if it's your own biological child, not when you are talking about a child that is 11 or 12. Sure, if the child's having a nightmare, let them come and have a snuggle for a little while with their biological parents. But you wouldn't keep them there all night. You would make sure that it was a short-term thing, then encourage them to go back to their own bed. But to have her trapped in that bed next to someone who wasn't even a biological parent for an entire night, and that's not abnormal, this woman really is a piece of work.
How do you guys sleep? You guys sleep clothed, unclothed? I sleep clothed.
Yeah.
Shirt, pants, pajama sets?
Yes.
Everybody?
I sleep in like my everyday clothes.
Okay.
On pajamas or baggy t-shirts and shorts.
Okay.
And Stefan would sleep with his t-shirt or boxers, sometimes with his pants on.
Note how she paused before she talked about what Stefan would sleep in. Because I think she realises that in this instance, she's backed into a corner. She's got to give them an answer. And she comes out with boxers, sometimes with his pants on. I think that was just an add-on, because she probably realises, as she was saying, with his boxers, it's probably not an acceptable answer. To me, I find that really, really triggering to think. I can't even put it into words, but the fact that he was sleeping in a bed next to Maddie with only boxers on. I'm not going to be more explicit than that, because like I said, I'm triggered by what that actually means, and I don't want to be triggering other people. But it's wrong. And how she didn't know that was wrong. She had to have known that was wrong. The fact that she gave that long pause first says to me that she did know it was wrong. But she accepted it because it suited her needs to allow it to happen. Okay, I'm going to be honest here, and that last bit just triggered me so much, it just hit me really hard that I actually had to stop and take a 5-10 minute breathing break before I could get back to this video. So I figured there may be some other people who were triggered by that. I can't go into more explanations of why that particular thing felt triggering for me, but I thought, let's just have a little moment here and enjoy a bit of puppy and cat time. Yeah, I don't know why why Taka was resting her head on top of the cat like that, because it can't have been comfortable for the cat. But, you know, Taka seems to have mothered every other animal in existence that's come along since I've had her. So I guess the cat's her baby as well. Okay, so let's just go back on with this, and I think we're over the more triggering parts, hopefully.
But I don't know anything. He's never mentioned anything. I've never seen any signs. I tried watching her like a hawk. I thought I was doing a good job, but I wasn't. I was oblivious to everything. 4 years?
Minimum. That's just how far back the cloud goes.
It makes me angry when I hear her say, I tried watching her like a hawk, because we all know that's complete utter BS. Because if she was paying even the slightest bit of attention to what was going on under her roof, she would have known, she would have seen it. She was facilitating what was happening to her daughter. At the end of the day, that is the truth of the matter. How could you say you were watching your child like a hawk and send her upstairs to sleep alone with a grown-ass male? I don't know how she can call that watching her child like a hawk. The woman is delusional, or she's lying to detectives. Personally, I believe she's lying to detectives. Like I said in previous videos, she's trying to create the impression of being the good mother. And in her eyes, well, right now, the only way that she can back out of this whole situation is to say, I tried watching her like a hawk. Which does not line up with any of the other things that she's told us in her interviews. It's just one big fat lie.
I think when you guys showed me the photos.
So we showed you photos of Stefan raping, and
No.
the first thought you had was to ask his father if he should get a lawyer?
No. I saw a picture. I didn't see the rape. I didn't know she was getting raped until yesterday. I saw the picture of the oral sex happening, and I knew that was true, right? That's evidence. That's for real. That's fucking happening. But I kept thinking, they're going. I don't know why I can't tell you why my brain kept thinking, no, he didn't kill her. Not that he didn't kill her, but she's still missing. She's still out there. She was taken. Yes, he's done this to her, and that's not okay. But I swore I felt in my body she was still alive. She was still out there.
Okay, first of all, let's call a spade a spade. I don't think Jenn has ever felt anything in her body about Maddie. Her own child. The woman she's just so way out there. And to turn around and say that the OS was not grape, sorry, YouTube words, what is this woman on? All she's doing here is she is trying to justify her own acceptance of these things. Purely and simply, that is what she is doing. Is she admitting here that she knew stuff was going on? Maybe she allowed stuff because she believed that there was no grapes involved. It was only other types of behaviours. I just cannot fathom what is going on in her brain here. But to me, the first thing that pops to mind here is that she is scrabbling here because she's been caught out, and she's trying to figure out how to make herself still look like the good parent here. She claims she doesn't believe that Stefan was capable of unaliving Maddie, even though she's been shown images showing what he was capable of doing. Why is that so unbelievable to me? This woman is not acting remotely like you would expect a concerned mother to act. Her main concern was making sure she got a lawyer for Stearns, not making sure that she found her daughter.
For the purpose of this conversation, I need you to believe it because I need you to figure it out. I need you to tell me what you think happened to her.
I think he killed her that night.
How?
I don't know. Could it probably be possible that he drugged her? Could he have choked her? I just don't know how you kill someone and don't leave a mess or don't leave evidence, or I mean, was there a mess? Was there evidence? I haven't gone upstairs. I don't know what you guys have, I barely went into the house today, so I don't know what.
I need to know what you think happened.
Now, a normal parent would not be able to verbalise what they think has happened to their child. And yet, not only does she manage to verbalise what she believes happened to Maddie, but she's pretty bloody accurate with what she's saying. And she even says something along the lines of, how would we do it without leaving a mess? And then she questions them. Was there a mess? I didn't go upstairs. BS. Once again, she's trying to find out what they know. You get these questions slipped in all over the place, like with the dumpster, where she wants to know what they know, so that she knows how much information she can let out, basically. But to actually say that she believed that he must have drugged her or choked her or did something that leaves no mess. This is her child she's talking about. She's talking about how she believes her child died. Why is she not a complete wreck right now? Why is she not completely incapable of speech? Because that's what I would expect from a normal parent. The fact that she can speculate like this, to me, is just mind-blowing. This is not what you would expect from a concerned parent. I think we can be pretty clear here. Jenn's only concern in the world is Jenn.
I think he killed her.
How? You mentioned drugged her, you mentioned other things. Explain your reasoning behind those assumptions and we'll move forward day by day.
So he had access to benzos and I think Lunesta.
What are those? I'm not familiar with that.
Benzodiazepines are anxiety medications which relax you and can make you sleepy.
Okay.
And Lunesta, I think, is a sleeping medication, like for insomnia. So I don't know if it's possible he gave her something and she was drugged. In those photos that you showed me where you're saying she's dead, maybe she was drugged.
Now, one thing I forgot to mention in the previous clip is the way that she struggles to maintain that little voice that she uses to try and sound emotional. It's like a wave. So she starts with the squeaky voice, and it's like she forgets that she's meant to be using this squeaky voice, and you get the starting to return to a normal voice, and then back down again towards the squeaky voice, because it's a put on. And when you put on something like that, it is hard to maintain, especially when you are trying to come up with the answers that you believe detectives want to hear. Because I don't believe for one moment that she's being remotely frank with these guys. Now, is it just me who finds it incredibly disturbing that she's allowing her daughter to go upstairs and sleep with a man who she knows has access to these drugs? And she's speaking about it so calmly. Well, you know, he's got access to benzos and Lonesta, so maybe he gave her them. I want to just flick her on the side of the head right now and say, hello, is there anybody in there? This is your daughter you're talking about. This woman she's a piece of work. She really is. Because right now, she's not thinking, or she doesn't sound like a parent who would be thinking, oh my gosh, is this what's happened with my child? And to be trying to come up with, well, what if she was just drugged in those photos that you have? Is that her just trying to deny the fact that her daughter's dead? Or is that her trying to come up with a credible argument to basically excuse Stearns? No, maybe he drugged her with those things overnight, and the reason she looks so doped out there in the car is because she was drugged, but he still dropped her off at school. Is that where she's headed with this? Or is she just completely on another planet? Whatever's going on in her brain has nothing to do with her daughter. I have to say that.
You're saying she's dead? Maybe she was drugged? But if she is dead and it was done upstairs, I could just only imagine that he choked her. I don't know how else you would kill someone and not leave a mess.
How do you think he got her out?
I have no idea, because roommates come in and out of the house at any given point in the morning and we don't know their schedules. They can come in at any time.
She's so matter of fact. Well, if she is dead and occurred upstairs, she's essentially saying the only way it could have possibly happened was that he choked her, because otherwise there'd have to be a mess. She claims that she never went upstairs, but she knows there's no mess. Although she did then go, well, was there a mess? Because she realised she screwed up. No emotion whatsoever here, just this attempt at the emotional voice, but by this point she's almost completely forgotten to do that voice. All you're getting now is that high-pitched, really annoying tone that she gets when she's trying to give the impression of being a poor little harmless, weak Jenn. But then let's talk about what she says about the housemates. We don't know their schedules, and I know I've said this in previous videos, but it's such a tell for her to be saying we don't know their schedules. I don't know how he got her out, because we don't know the flatmates' schedules. It doesn't matter if Jenn knows the flatmates' schedules or not. It only matters if Stefan knew the flatmates' schedules. By saying we don't know their schedules, she's including herself in that whole act of getting Maddie out of the house and out to the car. Once again, this is not the way that a mother should be talking about their child who has, in her words, been emmed upstairs and carried down at a time when it would be possible to do so without being seen by the flatmates. Jenn is only concerned here with making sure, for starters, you can tell she doesn't want to sound like she is connected to it because she's putting it all back on him, but she slips up and says we don't know the flatmates' schedules. And there's various other slip-ups that she does so many times where you think it makes you stop and question. But let's be real, regardless of what she's saying here, this is not how a parent should be acting. Did she ever give a damn about her daughter?
You guys showed me a picture, I think, of him or her in the car at 7:30 in the morning. My roommate left the house. She's the one who leaves the earliest. She left at 7:45. So like, what if he had waited a little longer? She would have caught him with carrying a body out of the house. How did he do that without being caught or seen?
Okay, I'm going to bypass the bit where, having already said that they don't know the flatmates' schedules, she then gives the flatmates' schedule. But the thing that gives me chills every time I hear it is this woman referring to her own child as a body. Talking about him getting the body out of the house. Jenn, that was your daughter. That wasn't a body. That was Maddie. To me, it's just unfathomable that a parent could be making that leap. I've said this in previous videos. When a child goes missing, it is something that is just really hard for a parent to wrap their brain around. You don't want to think the worst. You have this hope that your child's going to come back. And a lot of psychologists will tell you that a parent, even once they've been told that their child is deceased, cannot comprehend that fact and will still talk about their child in the present tense. They making that mental jump to their child being gone is something that takes months for a parent to achieve. So for her to be talking, this is the 1st of March. This is, 4 or 5 days after they've reported Maddie going missing, and she's referring to her as a body. Who does that? This is not a concerned parent. This is not a mother who cares deeply about her child, in my opinion.
So him leaving early in the morning and driving around aimlessly somewhere, I feel like he stashed the body at that time. When he came back and then left again. But see, it's daytime. Like, how could you move a body or move something in daytime and not be seen? But like, I feel like he went back to check to make sure he did a good job, or to move the body again. I don't know.
I hear her say that, and then later on she talks about the body being in the boot, and it just baffles me why they didn't really go at her at this point and basically get some sort of confession out of her that she knew. Because she has essentially confessed here that she knew exactly what happened. She is saying this so matter-of-factly, like she's telling them about a television show that she was watching the night before, not about her daughter. Because not once do you hear her say, Maddie. No, she talks about the body again. She even says he went back to make sure he did a good job. Like, what? How can that even cross your mind if that's your child that is missing? Like, I'm sorry, but... No, I'm not sorry. Her mind should not be going to this place. As a mother, she should not be capable of this kind of speculation. And she certainly shouldn't be doing it so calmly, like she's just conveying her opinion of what occurred in an episode of NCIS or something. You know what I mean, don't you? She's just... This is not how a parent works. But this is... I'm speechless. You can tell I'm just gobsmacked that, for starters, she seems to know exactly what was going on. But the fact that she does talk about her daughter this way is so disturbing to me. Referring to your child who is missing as the body. He went back to move the body. My gosh, what is going on in this woman's brain? We could speculate there's nothing going on in her brain, but I think when you listen to the way she discusses things in interviews, I think she is very, very calculating. I think here, I think what we're looking at here is this woman is a narcissist. So she doesn't understand what sort of emotion she should be displaying here, because she's not accustomed to having to show empathy for anyone. Her focus has always been Jenn. So to her, she doesn't realise that actually when you're talking about your child and referring to your child as the body, for starters, no normal parent's going to be capable of doing that. But secondly, you should be pretty much hyperventilating at this point in time.
I don't know which one is more suspicious to me. They both... 192 seems to me like the easiest place he could have dumped her, or like figured out where to put her. Unless she was in my trunk the whole time and he went to Northport.
The trunk of your car?
Yeah.
Didn't you drive your car at some point? Did you guys sit in your car at some point?
I did. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I would have probably smelled something, but I didn't.
Okay, so first of all, she's just calmly debating where he might have taken her. But the thing that I find so disturbing, and every time I hear it, it does my head in, is she's talking about maybe she was in the boot of her car, and they're like, well, weren't you in your car at one point? And she's like, well, that's what I mean, there was no smell. What? Is that what your brain goes to? Not a thought of, oh my God, what if I was sitting in my car? What if I drove my car with my child in the boot of the car and I didn't know? That should just about send someone catatonic. But no, to her, I'm just going to dismiss that because, well, there was no smell. So, no, she wasn't in the boot of my car because there was no smell. She's referring to her own child and the smell of decomposition. I just cannot. Honestly, there are so many times when I just think I just can't with this woman. How could a mother even contemplate the thought of their child decomposing? And I'm so sorry if that's triggering anyone, because I find it so disturbing. And yet she's just so calm and matter-of-fact about it. She's convinced that Maddie wasn't in the boot of her car because she would have smelt her. Her own child. The woman is a freak.
Because 192 seems like a really busy strip, and I can't think of anywhere immediately, like, other than going deep into St. Cloud, like passing St. Cloud, like going into Holapa or Harmony, that I could see some stashing the body somewhere around there.
How can anyone just calmly talk about someone stashing the body of their child somewhere? Come on, Jenn. Try and show some concern for your missing child. It's just so abnormal. Now, at one point in time, there's some comment about the possibility of Jenn being on the autism spectrum. And maybe this could be considered a sign of that, because she's compartmentalizing, she's not showing emotion, she's not capable of empathy. But to be honest, there are so few things about Jenn that would convince me of her being on the autism spectrum that I'm just going to straight out say, no, not at all. So for her to be able to compartmentalise like that and refer to her child as a body and talk about stashing the body somewhere, well, to me that leaves either the woman is a bit of a sociopath and clearly is not concerned over the fate of her daughter, or she's such a narcissist that she's only capable of showing emotion about herself, or of course that she has guilty knowledge and she's already had time to process all of this, and that she knows that the body was actually stashed at the back of St. Cloud. So because it is so factual, she's able to speak about it in a factual way. Just breaks my heart for Maddie when I hear her referring to her own child as the body. Makes you question if this woman ever had any maternal instincts.
If I were him and I had to stash a body, but I would never do this. My mind would say to go to Lake Toho. There's a lot of woods there, there's a lot of gators. I don't want to think about though.
We finally get a slight response from Jenn, where at the end of that the voice lowers right down and she says, I don't want to think about that though. To me, that is her actually admitting she doesn't want to think about the fact that that's what has happened to her child. But before that, she sounds so cold and callous. She's thinking Lake Toho, which is actually a really, really long name, which I've forgotten. I'm not going to try and pronounce it anyway because I might just make a fool of myself. She thinks there because there's lots of woods and there's gators. What makes this all the more disturbing, and I've shown you this map before, is the location where they found Maddie. Bearing in mind that he had that blowout with his tyre, he clearly reached a point where he could not drive any longer and had to pull over, and in order to change the tyre, he had to remove Maddie from the vehicle. Now obviously, if you're changing a tyre and there's a deceased child in the boot of your car, you're not going to just lie them on the road. And I hate saying this, but she would have been in full rigour by that point in time. So he wouldn't have been able to sit her back in the car. So his only option at that point was to take her and put her underneath the bamboo. So I think we can be clear that that is not the location where he was headed to. Not the location where he had planned on taking Maddie. And the thing is, all around that spot is lakes. There is possibly to the north, or at least on the map when I look at it, above where that road is Alligator Lake. A bit further on is Lake Lizzie, which is the one that she referred to so many times. And it seems like he's overshot the mark in terms of Lake Toho. But certainly it seems to me that maybe the plan was to take her to a lake somewhere. But how disturbing is it for a mother to even come to the conclusion that someone was going to take her child and dump the body, to use Jenn's phrases, where there were gators. In other words, to find a way of permanently disposing of the body so that it would never be found. I felt physically ill when I heard her say that, because that is not what a parent should be saying. Now, the final clips are from the derivative use interview, so there's a few things that we should keep in mind here. Firstly, she's in this interview with her lawyer present. That means she has been coached by her lawyer prior to this interview. Also, she's essentially been given a warning: you lie in this interview, it's going to bite you in the ass. She did actually lie in that interview, and I want to deep dive into that more in another video to see if there's more than just the one instance that I've already spotted. But that's not what we're going at about in this video. I think in terms of the answers that we get from here on in, a lot of what she says, I believe, is going to be more about her saying what she thinks they want to hear, rather than giving truthful answers. Let's have a look at these and I'll explain as we go along.
I believe in one of your former interviews you mentioned that Madeline might have gone over with you kind of what she got at the birthday party since you didn't have the chance to go because you were at work. Mm-hmm. When and where does that occur?
That occurs like right after I get home. It occurs in my bedroom. Everyone's in my room.
And so by everyone, let's just be clear, since I understand you have some roommates. So what do you mean by everyone?
Okay. Madeline, Stefan, and myself were in my bedroom.
Okay. At this point in time, do you recall what Madeline was wearing?
I don't know.
Let me ask it a different way. Can you tell me whether or not she was wearing a long-sleeved green sweatshirt and jeans?
Oh, no.
Okay. Would she have kind of been in her bed gear, or do you think she could have still been in the dress that she wore to her birthday celebration?
She would have been in pajamas. I can't recall the exact pajamas, but she would have been in pajamas. She had already, by this point in the evening, she had already showered and changed out of that birthday dress.
And was it your understanding from your sister that she had gotten dropped off about 8:30, she being Madeline?
8:30, 8:45, something around that time, yeah.
Okay, I've said this multiple times before, but I struggle with the notion of them having this conversation about Maddie's party and what she got at the party, because the more I look at Jen's statements, the less I believe that she actually saw Maddie on the Sunday night. Now, I've had a few people say to me, well, I wouldn't know, but basically they've really tried to give Jenn the visual prompts here to recall precisely what Maddie was wearing on the Sunday night. Now, given that Maddie was not found in sleepwear, and given that the house wasn't locked down for a good 24 hours or more after Maddie went missing, even if at first Jenn could not remember what Maddie was wearing, she should have seen Maddie's sleepwear lying on the floor somewhere in the house. So even though she's been given these cues that should allow her to tap into her memory and actually visualize them in her bedroom, they've given her two cues. They've asked about what they were doing, so asking about the birthday, so she should be visualizing them talking about the birthday. But then they've homed in on what she was wearing, and to help her out, they've clarified that it would have been her sleepwear, and yet she's still got no recollection whatsoever of what Maddie was wearing. She's apparently not seen it anywhere in the house after Maddie went missing. She has no visual recollection of Maddie being in her pajamas in her room the night before Maddie went missing, the very last time that her daughter was with her, supposedly. That just seems really off to me. Because had she had a real memory of seeing her daughter on that Sunday night, she should be able to say what Maddie was wearing, because she's had plenty of prompts. Like I said, she would have seen the sleepwear lying on the floor in the bathroom, or in Maddie's hamper, or in the floor in Maddie's room, which would have helped her to access that memory of that final night with Maddie. But she doesn't. So to me, this says either she's just so unobservant and that nothing to do with her daughter really matters to her, or that basically she didn't see Maddie Sunday night, and this whole story has been put on to hide the fact that she didn't see Maddie, because it would make her look like a bad mother. What would you expect from a mother who has their child's been at a party and they've come home from work? Yep, you would expect them to talk about the party, to have a look at the gifts, to show an interest in the child's party. If that didn't happen, then that's the story you're going to come up with, and I believe that is what has occurred here. Because it's very light on detail. I believe from the absence of details that this story about the counting the money and not knowing what Maddie was wearing basically points to us that Jenn was just trying to come up with what she believes made it sound like her being a good mother. But I truly believe that Maddie was either already asleep upstairs or already deceased. Probably not already deceased because of issues when it comes to rigor. Don't want to go down that path right now. But I believe that all the stories she has about Sunday night, because there's about 5 or 6 alternate versions of this story, are her trying to come up with a story that makes her look like a good mother.
And did Madeline tell you about the party?
She was really happy.
Did she tell you what food they had there at the party? Or?
Yeah, they had her favorites.
What are her favorites?
Puerto Rican food. So arroz con gandules.
All right, so you're gonna have to translate to English. I know frijoles and arroz and a couple other things, but help me out.
If I recall correctly, she had requested rice. It's a type of rice and beans.
Mm-hmm.
It's rice with pigeon peas.
Okay.
And pernil, which is, I'm not sure how to. It's a pork, but I'm not sure how they cook it.
Okay.
So it's cooked pork. That's typically what she requests for her parties. That's like her favorite meal.
So it's almost inaudible, but when he asks her about the party, she once again says she was really happy. The fact that she says it so very quietly says to me, this is not a truth. Otherwise, you would expect her to say this at normal volume. She's saying this because this is a repeat of something that she says so many times about Maddie's party. She was really happy afterwards. She had a great time at the party. All that BS that she's spouted so many times. Don't forget, this is the derivative use interview where she's expected to be telling the truth. So the fact here that she said that so quietly that it's almost inaudible is a big tell for me. Maddie wasn't so happy. Or she didn't see Maddie that night, so she doesn't know what kind of mood Maddie was in. Or another option, Maddie was very upset because Jenn didn't go to her party. Maybe they had an argument when Jenn got home. And that's the only interaction that occurred on that Sunday night. And Maddie stormed off upstairs. Because Stefan set himself up as the go-to when Jenn and Maddie were fighting. But let's move on to her talking about the food that Maddie had at her party. Yeah, it makes it sound like she had this conversation because she reels off the names of these foods. But she doesn't say this is what she had. She says, I believe she requested. She's not talking about a conversation with Maddie after the party where Maddie said this is what we had. She's saying it is her belief that Maddie requested these foods. Why is it her belief that Maddie requested these foods? She says at the end, because typically this is what she requests. So here, Jenn is talking about this is typically what she would have at her party. She's making an assumption here based on past experience. She hasn't stated at any point here, this is what Maddie said that she had at the party. She basically says, I believe this is what she had because this is typically what she would have. Or typically, I believe she requested these things because this is typically what she would have at her parties. She's not really giving a positive answer here. This goes back to what I said before about everything that Jenn says to do with the Sunday night is somewhat vague. I'll give her points at least, parent points, for knowing that this is typically what Maddie would ask for. But it honestly does not sound to me like she did have a conversation with Maddie about Maddie's party. One other thing I want to comment on here is that she believes that Maddie was dropped off at 8:30 because that's what her sister told her. Now, if you had made the arrangement for your daughter to be dropped off home at 8:30 and you were at work and you were going to be at work for another 2 hours, would you not try and find the opportunity to quickly make a phone call to your daughter to check that she got home okay, and just to reinforce that she needs to start getting ready for bed? I would imagine that any reasonable employer would not have an issue with a staff member doing that. But that's never part of her narrative. Jenn does not seem to know how to act like a decent mother.
Now, during this 30 minutes that the three of you are in your bedroom, is Madeline engaging in any of her kind of nighttime routine or, getting ready for bed? What else is going on, if anything?
We spent a long time talking about gifts and having her show me, and then we counted out her money.
So note the pauses and the ums here. And to me, this clearly shows that actually she's just trying to think of what would sound like the kind of things that a good parent would do. We spent a lot of time talking about her gifts and her money. Now, I'm not sure how you can spend a lot of time talking about one gift, because according to Maddie's best friend, there was only one gift on the table. And as for counting out money, well, how much time would that take, even if they did do that? Let's say that there were a lot of relatives there. When you give money as a gift, it is going to be, a standard amount. Depending on what her family's like, maybe $20, maybe $25, maybe $50. It's not going to be difficult amounts to count. there's not going to be thousands and thousands of dollars worth of money there to count. So at the most, maybe 5 minutes, and that's possibly being quite generous. Because at the end of the day, you would just be counting up set amounts. It wouldn't be sitting there and going, okay, we've got $17.50 here, let's put all these coins over here, and there's $12.25 here, so we'll put these coins. No. Really simple math. Probably $20, $50, $25 maybe. I'm just, coming up with random amounts here. But you see where I'm headed with this, don't you? Easy to add up. So, saying we spend a really long time doing this, what a load of crap. She's saying this because this is what she believes a mother would say. Like I said, I'm not even convinced that she saw Maddie on the Sunday night. So to me, this whole story just sounds like that. A story. Made up to make her sound like the good mum.
Okay. What about this specific evening? Do you remember anything about it?
Yes. This evening, we had, I had already discussed prior to Stefan coming to visit that he was going to help me take Maddie to school that day. So because I knew that was what was going to happen that night, I had asked Maddie, pick out your clothes, have everything ready, have your backpack ready, your water bottle, everything you need ready, so that way you could just grab your stuff and head out. It won't be too much of a hassle in the morning. And so she did. She picked out her clothing. I asked her what she was wearing, and she told me what she had picked out. I said, okay, fine.
All right, so she picks it out, but does she physically take it out of somewhere, wherever she stores her clothes, and put it somewhere?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure if she took that clothes upstairs with her or anything like that.
All right. So as far you didn't see them in your room, and did you have the opportunity to kind of see her cubby part of the living room to see if she had put them on her bed or anything like that?
I hadn't seen them.
So again, I think, particularly given that this is not something that she had raised in other interviews, when he asks her about that specific evening and she comes out with the getting everything ready, putting a water bottle in the backpack, getting her clothes, choosing her clothes, getting her clothes out. I checked with her what she was going to wear and she told me. It does fall short for her when he asks her if she basically checked if she'd done all that. Because she would have been caught out in a lie if she'd have said, yes, I checked that she'd already pulled out her clothes and laid them out. Because we know that she actually told them the wrong clothes that Maddie was wearing. So she can't lie in this interview and say that she saw what Maddie wore, because they would know it was an outright lie, because she's already claimed in the past that she knew what Maddie was wearing and gave the wrong clothes. So she's tried to create the impression here of being super mum and getting Maddie so very organised. But that falls apart because she has to admit that she wouldn't have been able to have seen what Maddie was wearing, or what Maddie was planning on wearing, because that would have been an obvious lie. So, supposedly, super organised mum tells Maddie to do all these things to get ready for school the next day, but doesn't follow through to make sure that Maddie has done all these things to get ready for school the next day. It's like swing and miss. Nice try, Jen, but total epic fail. And honestly, if you were the kind of mother that were organised enough to say, okay, when you get home, before you start getting ready for bed, I want you to do these things, then wouldn't you expect that the mother would then check when they got home, before having a conversation about the party or everything, to check, have you got your water bottle out? Can you show me that you've done this? Can you show me what clothes? Show me that you've got your clothes out, ready to put on in the morning. But honestly, do we really believe that Jenn helped Maddie with any of those things any other day? I doubt it very much. Maddie would have gotten herself ready without being dressed by her mum, without needing approval from her mother of what clothes she was going to wear, which to me says that this was just a made-up story. And the fact that she hasn't checked on these things, well, she can't, like I said, because she would be proven in a lie, just to me reinforces it. Not only that, but if you look at the times when she mentions a few times about getting Maddie to get her clothes out. She hasn't mentioned the other stuff before, but she does mention the clothes before, and she gets confused between saying that this happened before that evening, and then you've got one instance where she's supposedly told Maddie during that Sunday evening to do these things, and another instance where she implies that she'd told Maddie this earlier. So even the fact that the timeline doesn't match, to me says this is a fabricated story to make her look like a good mum. My belief is that the truth of the matter is that Jenn came home from work. Jenn's concern was Jenn. Take some food, take some meds, go to bed. Maddie didn't equate into any of that at all. But let's think of a credible story that makes us sound like a good mum. This is what I think a good mum would probably do.
Does Madeline have like a water bottle or a hydro flask or whatever the kids call it that she likes to sleep with and bring up or bring wherever she's sleeping?
Typically not. That stays downstairs in her backpack, and then she'll clean it in the morning and then fill it back up and leave it in her backpack. That typically stays in the backpack.
Okay.
Again, another outright lie. First of all, Jenn has, on a different occasion, claimed that it's all part of Jenn's morning routine. She fills up Maddie's water bottle and prepares her lunch and prepares her breakfast and does all these motherly things. And now she's saying that the water bottle stays in the backpack, Maddie pulls it out of a morning, cleans it out, refills it, puts it in the backpack. Now, I've showed you this in another video, but I went through the images of the backpack. There's no water bottle in that backpack. Also, I showed images of the kitchen, and you can clearly see 2 water bottles side by side on the kitchen bench. And were Jenn to be headed into the kitchen from her bedroom at any point in time, the first thing she would have seen would have been those 2 drink bottles, because they would have been in direct line of sight. So here, this is yet another outright lie. Funny enough, this is the interview when she's not meant to be lying. But the story about it typically staying in her backpack, Maddie pulls it out, Maddie refills it, Maddie puts it back in her bag, why was the drink bottle sitting on the kitchen bench? Why was it not in her backpack? And possibly more importantly, why is Jenn creating these stories about what their routines look like that are clearly not the truth? Again, I think this is her being like, let me show you that I am the perfect mother. But let's be real, Jenn would never ever win any awards for Mother of the Year.
Now, if your daughter had been awake, would she come in and say goodbye to you before school or not? Just let you sleep?
I would have hoped she would have come by and say goodbye to me. I can't remember if this is one of the first times that Stefan actually took her to school, so I would have hoped she would have said good night, but I'm not sure.
So, just on an aside, way back when I was going through all these clips to use in this video, or in the past 3 videos, when I got to this clip, I suddenly noticed something that was utterly mind-blowing. Or at least to me it was mind-blowing. He asks her if Maddie would normally come and say goodbye before she left for school. And she said, I would have hoped she would have come in and said goodbye before she went to school. Meaning that, well, she's not really sure. She says she tries here to say that this is the first time Stefan took her to school. But then, when she repeats it, she says, I would have hoped she would have come in and said good night. That, for me, was like a whoa moment. Major leakage, basically. Huge slip up. I think here she is talking about the night before. Because she knows that Maddie wasn't around the morning before, or the morning that he took her away and put her in amongst the bamboo. But her saying, I would have hoped she would have come in and said good night, to me implies that she didn't see Maddie on the Sunday night at all. Because she would have hoped she would have come in and said good night, but clearly she didn't. But her saying, I would have hoped, about Maddie going in to say goodbye or good night, basically implies that she's saying, well, I guess this is what you would expect to happen in a normal relationship. She's not saying that this has ever occurred in the past at any point in time. So it's one of those things, yet again, where I think she's telling them what she thinks a good mother would say. I would have hoped she would have come in and said goodbye to me before she went. The confusing thing is this the first time that Stefan supposedly took Maddie to school? And did she lie about all the other times? Or is she lying now and saying this is the first time? I think this is actually the truth, and that Stefan never took Maddie to school before, because in the interview with Maddie's best friend, she actually said to them that she didn't think Stefan had ever taken Maddie to school. So basically, Jen's just dealing in fiction here. She doesn't know if Maddie would have gone in to say goodbye to her before heading off to school, because it's never occurred before that Stefan has taken her to school. But let's get real here too. Of course, had Maddie been preparing for school, she would have interacted with Jenn that morning, because she had to go through Jenn's room to put on her makeup in Jenn's bathroom, to brush her hair in Jenn's bathroom, to brush her teeth in Jenn's bathroom. She had to get her medication, her ADHD medication, from Jenn's room. So yes, she should have had interaction with Jenn had she been alive. Jenn would know that. Okay, so I did go slightly off at a tangent there, but the whole point of what I was saying here is her saying, I would have hoped she would have come in and said goodbye to me, is her basically coming up with what she thinks is the right answer. But saying I would have hoped implies that she doesn't really have an answer for that question.
When you leave to go pick Madeline up at 2:30, do you take her phone with you?
I do.
And how is it that you come to get her phone to go with you?
At some point in the morning, I was organizing and putting things away, and I walked into her bedroom and I saw her phone on her dresser. And I just assumed, oh, she must have left it here while getting dressed and forgot it.
Here we have further evidence of Jenn the super mum. So apparently she was organising and putting things away at some point that morning. Was that in that period of time after her alarm went off and she got ready and went to go to her appointment? Or was it between like 11:15 or 11:30, whatever time it was she got home, and 12 o'clock? And, well, exactly what things was she putting away and what straightening up was she doing? Because there were still clothes lying around all over the place. There's certainly no evidence of her straightening up and putting things away. So, do we really believe that she did that? Yeah, right. How she came across Maddie's phone in Maddie's room when it would have been hidden by the divider, we can only guess, because Jenn's not going to tell us the truth there. Instead, she's going to come up with this story that makes her sound like this great mum who actually does all this straightening up and organising and has the perfectly immaculate house, because that's what she does when her child's away at school. She does all the housekeeping. Yeah, right.
So you just started this job at Disney Coronado Springs like a week or two earlier, is that right?
Yes.
And your sister and other family members would help with Maddie getting to school because of your job?
Yes, my mom and my sister, yes.
Okay. Why is it that now Stefan on February 26th is coming up to help as opposed to any of your family members helping getting Madeline to school?
I had asked for him to come and help me because I think I was working a lot of night shifts or like really late shifts, and I just wanted the opportunity to see Maddie, like, because I wanted to spend more time with my daughter throughout the week while I was working, versus had she had stayed at my mom's, I wouldn't have seen her all week.
Okay.
So that was just me wanting to see her and spend time with her.
I call BS on that. Sure, a normal mother would want to be able to spend as much time as possible with their children and would hate the fact that they were getting home late at night after their child has gone to bed. But can we look at it at what she's saying here? Because supposedly what she's saying here is that she would have been quite willing for Maddie to have waited up late at night and got to bed really late so that Jenn could see her before Maddie went to school. So that's one thing she's saying there. That's not responsible parenting. Wouldn't your priority be, well, it's better if she sleeps at my mother's place because I'm not going to get home till 10:30, 11 o'clock, and I would like her to be in bed before then. She's not going to get a decent night's sleep. She's not going to have a good week at school. So it's better for her to get to sleep. But she had 2 days off coming up. She said that she wasn't back at work till the Wednesday. And she needed Stefan to come on the Sunday night. First of all, can we acknowledge that she was already at the location of her appointment shortly before 10 o'clock. Maddie didn't start school till, I think it was 9:38 that the school day starts. 9:28 or 9:38. Either way, there's only a half-hour gap there where Jenn could have got up half an hour earlier and got Maddie to school. But if you go back and listen to Maddie's best friend, she's actually mentioned occasions when Maddie has turned up during first period because she has slept in. So let's back up a little bit here. Jenn needed Stefan to take Maddie to school so Jenn could sleep. Maddie already had a late night because Jenn had finished late and apparently they'd been sitting up talking about Maddie's birthday. Now, if you were really concerned with being able to spend time with your child, and your child had already had a late night before, here's a thought. Why not let your child sleep a little late and you drop her off at school on your way to your appointment, which is almost at the same location as the school. So she's half an hour late for school, but at least she's had a little bit of a sleep in, and we know there's a precedent for her for that because her friend has spoken about her turning up late to school on times when she's slept in. So why is it all of a sudden important, given that Jenn wanted to see more of her daughter, why is it suddenly more important to get Maddie to school on time and Jenn not see Maddie at all that morning, rather than to let her have a little bit of a sleep in after her late night and get her to school late, which is something that seems to be the norm? Because I suspect that it's probably something that happened quite frequently because Jenn couldn't get her ass out of bed. Is this a sign of a good mother? I don't think so. And like I said, she had 2 days off work. Why did she need Stefan there for those 2 days when clearly she was capable of picking Maddie up after school on those 2 days? And clearly her talking about she needed to sleep because of her meds makes it sound that the arrangement for him to take Maddie to school was a last minute arrangement, meaning that she didn't even need him there on the Sunday night, the Monday or the Tuesday, or for that matter even Wednesday morning if she's working nights. She could have had 3 days straight of seeing her daughter. But apparently she needed Stefan to come and help her with that. It doesn't add up. It's a BS story designed to make her sound like the caring mother who wanted more time with her child, when clearly that's not what the situation was.
Did she ever have sleepovers? Like have friends come over and sleep over?
Slumber parties, no.
Did she ever go and attend any?
No.
Is there any particular reason? I mean, she's a 12-year-old girl on the cusp of being 13.
Yeah, I've been very uncomfortable with sleepovers just because I know what can happen. Anything can happen in a sleepover.
Well, then you can be the host house like we kind of were. You never hosted any sleepovers for her friends?
For her friends, no.
Did she ask about it?
Yeah, she did ask.
Was it probably a source of contention or arguments?
It was, I guess what was the source of argument is her and she wanted to really sleep over her best friend's house, and I just kept saying, no, you never know what could happen. I don't know the dad, I don't know the brother, I don't know anybody there. Like, I don't know what could happen to you. So, just afraid of her getting assaulted.
Okay.
Seriously, this has been said so many times, but it is such a joke. She comes up with this ridiculous story of Maddie wasn't allowed to go to some slumber parties because she didn't know the pair, like the fathers or the brothers, or she knew what could happen at these slumber parties, and she didn't want Maddie to be harmed. Well, given the option of allowing your child to go to a slumber party with a bunch of other 12-year-old girls, where she would be sleeping in a room with 12-year-old girls, as opposed to allowing her to have a slumber party upstairs with a grown-ass 37-year-old man, you were okay with that, but you weren't okay with her having a slumber party with a bunch of 12-year-old girls. What a load of tosh. She tries to make us believe that she tried to make them believe that she was hyper-vigilant, she was a super responsible mother that wouldn't take any risks with her child. She's such a hypocrite.
How about her routine getting ready for school in the morning? What's that about?
We'd wake up. The alarm would start ringing around 7:30. We'd snooze it up until 8 o'clock. Then she'd get up. She'd get dressed. And then she'd lay back down in bed while she would wait for me to make her breakfast.
So she's a breakfast eater?
Yeah.
Okay.
She'd have breakfast. Then she would start, with brushing her hair, brushing her teeth, putting on makeup. At 5, I would give her ADHD medications for school.
Is that every day or just school days?
Okay, so I'm just wondering, is Jenn trying to give the impression here that she gets up and cooks some fabulous hot breakfast or something for Maddie every morning? Because at 12, if Maddie's just having like cereal for breakfast, pretty certain she could manage to do that for herself. Jen's saying she lies back down while I get her breakfast ready for her implies that Jen's doing some kind of fancy breakfast for Maddie. Can you really see Jenn doing that? I find that a little bit unbelievable. Maybe that is a situation. Maybe Jenn babies her daughter, or used to baby her daughter, and poured her cereal out for her, and poured her drink out for her. But honestly, I would imagine more of it being a case with a 12-year-old girl of her getting up and sorting her own breakfast out for herself. I don't know of any 12-year-old whose parents prepare their breakfast for them, unless of course it is some wonderful cooked breakfast. Like I said, I don't see Jenn as that sort of parent. Now, I also just want to point out, she's giving like this whole morning routine, this is how it all happens, and she makes sure that Maddie takes her meds before school, and yet we never hear her talking about that in the previous interviews before it was known that Maddie was deceased and that Stefan had actually taken Maddie's body out of the house, not Maddie. You never hear her discussing anything to do with Maddie's morning meds. This mother who is so vigilant about her daughter's medications, and yet it escaped her notice that Maddie never took her morning meds that morning. If she was such a brilliant mother, you would think that would have been one of the first things she would notice. But it's never, ever once been brought up by her. I think that shows us, A, what kind of mother she was, and B, the fact that she knew that the meds weren't a concern that morning.
I had asked him the day that, the one morning Maddie wouldn't wake up and get ready for school, and she was just out of it. I assumed it was medication related.
Okay.
But I didn't really, I'm like, did this one medication hit her too hard because we gave it to her late? I called poison control. I needed to see what would happen. Because at this point, I think I had gotten Stefan to admit that he gave her a second dose of the sleeping meds as well, because he thought I had given it to her in the first place.
Okay.
But that was with hydroxyzine. I didn't know anything about THC, the marijuana.
I'm just asking you.
Oh.
I'm asking if you remember having that conversation, because there is a conversation on your phone about you were relaying that Madeline said that she suspected that it was different bigger pills, and you relayed that to Stefan and had a conversation with him. And if you don't remember it because it was a year ago, that's fine.
Again, there's so much here to comment on. First of all, your child won't wake up of a morning. You need to make a choice of what you're going to do, how you're going to react. What are the options? Well, at least she didn't just decide to just wait and see if Maddie did wake up later on. So I guess there's at least some responsibility there. She called the poisons line because she needed to find out what would happen. My reaction would have been to call an ambulance. I'm guessing that perhaps in the United States you guys have to pay for an ambulance if you call an ambulance. So maybe she didn't want to have to pay for an ambulance. Maybe she also didn't want to call for an ambulance because that would have actually highlighted the fact that her child had been overdosed on sleeping medications and would have brought in people to investigate if she was a bad mother. So she went for the soft option, the option that would mean that nobody would need to know that her daughter had been overdosed by her boyfriend or ex-boyfriend. Who's most important in this scenario? Jenn is most important in this scenario. By calling Poison's hotline, she's got the anonymity. She doesn't come under fire herself. Now let's talk about Stefan giving Maddie an extra dose of medications. Let's talk about Stefan apparently giving Maddie a tablet that Maddie believed was bigger than what he would normally give her, or what she would normally have. And this is evidenced in a text between Jenn and Stefan from 12 months earlier, which apparently she has no recollection of. Again, I would expect that to be something that would be indelibly fixed in a parent's mind. And what would my reaction be if I was a parent and another adult had overdosed my child? Well, for starters, I would not want to have them alone with my child at times when my child was taking medications, such as on the Sunday night when Jenn was still at work and Stefan turned up 15 minutes after Maddie had been dropped off. How could you trust this man to be alone with your child after he had over-medicated your child, and there was even some question as to whether or not it was even the right medication? No normal mother would allow that. You would never forget your child saying, "I think the tablet was bigger than what I usually have." You would actually become hypervigilant over your child's medications. You would never want that person to be anywhere near your child's medications ever again. I think for a normal parent, one strike and you're out. What normal parent is going to take any risks over medications when it comes to their child? Apparently Jenn does. That's not what I expect from a decent parent.
I think that room remained empty for a while. For a little bit, there was another roommate there, but it remained empty for the most part.
And were your female roommates already there in 2 and 3?
Yes.
Why doesn't Madeline have that bedroom 4?
I wanted her to have bedroom 4, but my dad really wanted rent. That whole unit that I live in is owned by my father.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Do you pay your father anything to live there, or does he just handle the collecting the rent from your rentees, lessees, whatever they are?
I pay him rent as well.
Okay. What do you pay for the rent?
My portion of the rent was $400 a month.
Again, a few things to acknowledge here. Now, I won't go too much into the cost of rent side of it because I spoke about that in the previous video, but she was getting maintenance payments from, like, child support from Tyler. She was paying less than the going rate in rent for her room, and yet she couldn't scrape up money to pay for a room for Maddie. But the big elephant in the room here, that upstairs room remained empty for quite some time because they hadn't found someone to lease that room. Now, if I was in this situation, I would be asking my father, until you find someone to rent that room to, can Maddie have that room? Even if she can't afford to pay an extra rent for an extra room, surely if there's no money coming in and that room is empty, why would it matter if Maddie used that room? It shouldn't have mattered. And I listened to the interview with Stephanie and Juan, and I listened to the sadness in one's voice. And I think, had he been asked, can Maddie use that room until someone else starts renting it, I suspect the answer would have been yes. Of course, my thoughts are, if you've got money to spare on Botox, if you've got money to buy yourself a brand new car, which she had bought 2 years earlier, and people have pointed out there's a lot of quite expensive things in Jenn's apartment. You scrimp and save. You budget so that you can pay rent for your child to have a room. You do everything in your power for your child to have a room. You have an empty room upstairs that could have been used as a bedroom for Maddie until someone new came along. And I've said this so many times before. If she could not afford a room for Maddie, if her father said, no, I want to leave that room empty until someone rents it, why the heck wasn't she sleeping out there in that living room, fake bedroom, and allowing Maddie to have her own bedroom in the master bedroom downstairs? The woman is the most self-centered person to have ever walked the earth, in my opinion.
Maddie had the opportunity to go visit her biological father in the fall out in Texas. Is that a yes?
Yes.
All right. Do you remember texting the biological father, hope nobody touches Maddie or tries shit or films her under the bathroom? You remember sending that text?
No.
Orange County Sheriff's Office back in February?
No.
Because that seems like a very oddly specific thing to text the father. So you didn't know anything about what was going on filming underneath bathroom doors?
No idea. I don't know why I would have texted that.
Okay. June 16th of last year, about 9:30 p.m.
Oh, actually, I can't actually think back to that.
Okay. What?
I think around the time that Maddie was going to fly out to Houston, there had been an airline person that had gone into the bathroom and placed their camera on the toilet to film. And I remember thinking, I don't want Maddie, I'm afraid of Maddie being alone on a plane, because what if an attendant does that to her? I said, hold on, let me fix something in the bathroom. And in reality, they're setting up a camera, because this did happen to a girl.
Okay.
So I want to say it may have been concerns over that.
Okay.
Okay, so supposedly, once again, she's the hyper-vigilant parent. She can't protect her child in her own home, but she's hyper-vigilant. She's concerned about Maddie travelling alone on a plane because of this story to do with the flight attendant. But note she says, I think it's because of this, and it may have been concerns over that. She's not being definite here and saying this is definitely the reason why. Not only that, but when he asked her, when he said that's really specific, why would you say something like that, she didn't have an answer. Now, if it was something that you were genuinely concerned about, you would remember precisely why it was that you thought that. You wouldn't need that extra processing time to come up with a story. A story which is not conclusive. It's only something that you think may have been the reasoning behind you saying that one thing. Again, she's trying to give the impression of being this hyper-vigilant parent who puts her child's needs above everything else and who thinks of everything possible that could possibly go wrong in terms of her child coming to harm. She can supposedly think about the risk of her daughter flying alone and being filmed by a member of the flight staff. But she can't think about the possibility of things happening to her daughter if her daughter sleeps upstairs alone in a locked room with a 37-year-old man. Right. As much as she would like us to believe that she is this super wonderful mother, she falls flat every time.
Okay, did you ever go into the room after you discovered that she was missing? Did you go upstairs to that bedroom? No. Okay.
And I know I've said this multiple times before, but your child is missing. Wouldn't you turn your house upside down looking for clues as to why your child is not there with you right then and there? Wouldn't you go and check out the room where supposedly she last slept? I just find this to be so amazing that she can claim that she didn't go upstairs and look in that room. I also want to point out that she knew that Stefan's gun was up there, and that when they were talking about her stuffies, did you see any of Maddie's stuffies upstairs? No, I didn't see any of Maddie's stuffies upstairs that time, inferring that she had actually been upstairs. But here, she's trying to convince us that no, she hasn't been upstairs. Because, you know, why would you want to go upstairs when your child's missing and you want to try and figure out some reason why your child could be missing?
Okay. Now, the purpose of you telling or having Maddie sleep with Stefan upstairs is because you told me before that you needed a good night's sleep. If you needed this kind of sleep previously to when Stefan wasn't there, what would happen?
You mean if Stefan wasn't there and I needed this good night's sleep?
Mm-hmm.
It depends. If I had missed my meds the way I missed them that night and I wasn't feeling, or I was feeling just how I was feeling, I'm not sure if I would have had her sleep, have her sleep with me on the other side of the bed, or if I would have sent her upstairs to the guest room. But she sleeps like a monkey. She rolls. She'll start on one end of the bed and end up on top of me by the end of the night. And she's a gymnast, I guess. But
Have you ever sent her upstairs to sleep?
no, not for any of these reasons.
Have you ever sent her upstairs to sleep by herself?
Alone?
Mm-hmm.
No.
And checkmate. She says it very, very quietly because she doesn't want to have to admit to it. But he's basically got her to admit to the fact that if Stefan wasn't there and she needed a good night's sleep, she wouldn't send Maddie upstairs. That has never, ever, ever occurred in the past. She's never sent Maddie upstairs to sleep alone. But she's quite happy to send Maddie upstairs to sleep with Stefan. That, I think, tells you all you need to know about what kind of mother Jenn is. I don't think I even need to say more about that. And it was shortly after this that Jenn's lawyer basically said, I think we need to wrap this up now. Because I think they realised Jenn was coming close to incriminating herself. Although, definitely, I'm looking forward to going back through that derivative use interview and figuring out just how many lies Jenn made during that interview. So this brings us to the end of this 3-part series on Jenn as a super mum. I think we'll all come to the same conclusion here, that Jenn was far from a decent mother. She has shown us that for Jenn, number one priority is Jenn. We've also seen several instances where she's basically told detectives things because I believe she thinks that's what would make her look like a good parent. And she's been perhaps a little bit less than truthful there. She's been basically telling the fairy tale of Jenn, the super caring super mum, as opposed to telling the truth. So, thanks for listening. If you are new, please subscribe to my channel. I now have a goal of 5,000 subscribers. Even reaching 4,000 would be pretty exciting. So I would greatly appreciate any new subscribers. Also, please hit the like button. That helps get this video out into the algorithm and seen by more people. And of course, please leave a comment below. I look forward to reading your comments. There are always so many fabulous comments made by people in my videos. You guys just come up with some really great thoughts, and I always look forward to seeing these things. So thanks, and I will catch you in the next one.